Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite parts of the application packet, and that is the resume. I know you all have probably been given advice on resumes before, and many of you may already have resumes. That's great. You may get some contradictory advice in this class. That's okay though. What I want you to know is that I'm trying to help each of you create professional resumes that will get you beyond summer internships. So keep an open mind with me and let's walk through this. In terms of resumes in this class, you need two things. First, I want you to analyze one resume from your field. And second, you're going to be creating your own resume for a job ad you found. So you can go to a lot of places to find sample resumes of people who have jobs that you want, but I recommend going to monster.com and looking at their sample resumes by field, or going to OU Career Services. A word of caution, however, the Career Services resumes and cover letters are notoriously bad. They are really, really bad. They're poorly formatted and don't have enough information on them. You'll see this when we grade sample resumes. All right, so on to advice about resumes. My first tip is that the goal of a resume is to build a picture of yourself doing a good job of the job you are applying to. So a lot of information on the resume comes straight from your job ad analysis and your T-chart, which you'll build a little later. Use the language and hard and soft skills the job ad specifically request. So the most important thing on a resume are your past professional experiences. Like I said in the last video, these could be internships, clubs, class assignments, other jobs, or anything that shows off your technical project skills. To write these, you use bullet points that start with active verbs, not passive. If the job you're describing is ongoing, these active verbs should be in the present tense. If it's over, then your bullet point should be in past tense. Most importantly, be consistent with your tenses when you can. Ideally, in these descriptions of what you did, you want to focus not on duties, but on accomplishments. You want to paint yourself as someone who is an active professional, and you also want to avoid student language, as we can see in some of the examples on the screen. So for example, this first bullet point, gained experience in public speaking. First, it's passive and it sounds like this is still a student trying to learn something. I don't want to hire someone who's still gaining experience. I want someone who already has it. Also, this bullet point isn't really specific. Where was this experience? When? How much? You want to try your hardest to quantify each of your bullet points because people love numbers and their eyes are drawn to them. The second example is better because it is way more specific. I know where the presentation was given, it got rid of student language, but I still don't know what the presentation was about. You want to be really specific in your bullet points because it's specificity that builds a picture of you and differentiates you from everyone else. The final bullet point here is the best. It adds some quantification and it tells me where you actually presented. Let's move on to point number 2. Resumes need to be well formatted. In the first video in this class, I talked about dual stream reading and scannability. You want to make your resume scannable. You should use headings, vectors, italics, and bolds. You should also use bullet points. And you should, again, quantify things using numbers whenever you can. And make sure you use actual numerals instead of spelling out numbers. You're trying to draw attention when you use numbers. So a couple of rules of formatting that you should follow. Don't randomly bold things. Students tend to think they should just bold the most important words in their resume, like maybe the grade point average. No, don't just bold things at random. Only bold headings. Next, don't use underlining to highlight things. You should never use underlining in writing anymore anyway. Just a piece of advice. Bold and italics took the place of underlining when we started using word processors instead of typewriters. So again, no underlining. Third, use a serif font for your body text and a sans serif font for your headings. A serif font is one like Times New Roman that has little feet, as you can see over here. Right, there are little feet on the letters. And I actually would stick with Times New Roman or something very similar for the majority of your resume text. Meanwhile, something like Arial is good for headings because it jumps out from the rest of the text. A final rule is that you don't really want to change font sizes outside of your name at the top of the paper. That can be larger in size, but everything else should be 11 or 12 point font. A final rule that you should use is to create vectors. And you can see vectors here. So what that means is you're trying to create balance. So you don't want a resume that has a lot of text and font on the left side while the right side of the resume is fairly blank. You want to create a good balance. So imagine you have 4 quadrants. You want a similar amount of information in each quadrant. All right, rule 3, or tip 3 actually, deals with uniformity, consistency, and parallelism. Again, similar to what I was just talking about with vectors. Rule 4 is spin, spin, spin. So when I say spin, I mean rewrite bullet points to match the job you are applying for. Never try to use the same resume for multiple jobs. You must edit your resume depending on the job you're applying for. So as far as the spinning goes, this could mean changing the order of the bullets to put the most important bullet for one particular job first. And it also means changing out active verbs to mimic the language of the job ad. Next tip. You're not in high school anymore, so it's really important to cut unnecessary information out of a resume. So before I begin on this point though, there are always exceptions to the rules, and those exceptions are primarily things that show you excelling at the job you're being hired to do. However, if something on your resume shows you in a poor light or is childish, cut it. Now then, the objective statement. I say no on these just because they're typically a waste of space and they're old-fashioned, and you want to streamline your resume when you can. However, if you know for sure that your field likes objective statements, keep them in. Okay, and here are some templates you can look at for resumes. Pinterest is really helpful. We have a BuzzFeed link. And save as PDF when you can. If you are building a resume in Word, make sure you save it as a PDF. And here you see the key parts of a resume, the things you'll see on most every resume. It's education, experience, contact info, skills and abilities, awards, and optional things like branding statements or objective statements. All right, thank you.